Hey, welcome back. It's Sarah from Roadworthy. I've got a weekly reads. This week was actually shockingly busy. I was hoping this week would be like after the new year, things would calm down. No, didn't calm down. I got a haircut. Let's see, both sons had dentist appointments. Gavin, my youngest, is doing a class abroad next year, so we had to go to the travel clinic for him to get vaccines. So I don't know, and then I had social events, I don't know. This week was super busy, and I only completed 2 books this week. Which is a little unusual for me. And they were both nonfiction, which is also a little unusual for me. So the first, I put it down, put it down over here, is Raw Material by Stephany Wilkes. The subtitle is Working Wool in the West. This is a very California-centric book. Stephany Wilkes she learned to knit, and she went into her local yarn shop in California and was looking around at yarn and said, "Where's the local yarns?" And they were like, "Huh?" And so this book sort of set Stephany on this journey to sort of discover why you really can't find yarn 100% produced in the United States. So this is from raising the sheep in the United States, shearing it, processing the wool, creating yarn, dyeing yarn, the whole production chain, you can't really find in the United States. And so this book is really kind of diving into that. Along the way, Stephany finds out that being a sheep shearer is a dying skill. That one of the challenges that growers have is getting a shearer. And so she decides to become a sheep shearer. So this book is part her journey to learning how to shear sheep, and then the various producers that she meets along the way. So there is just some cool facts in here. So most sheep in the United States, the wool is discarded. It is not economically viable for a farmer to have the wool processed into yarn, because there are so few commercial mills in the United States. So a grower in California would have to ship their wool to a mill in Michigan, and then have that sent back, because the vast majority of wool that is processed here in the United States is sold in bulk to China and India. And so, and again, because we as Americans want cheap clothes, the wool that China and India want is it's white, and kind of not great quality wool. So, that's definitely an economic driver. So she gets into people who are raising heirloom breeds of sheep. So a lot of sheep wool is actually not white. It's grays, browns, black. And the quality of wool produced by different species or types of sheep vary. So you can get very short fibers to very long fibers, coarse fibers to very smooth fibers. The thickness can vary. So there's a lot of variables. And in fact, she gets into how wool is graded. And in fact, in California, most of the wool is graded by a man from New Zealand. So he flies over for the shearing season in California because, again, there's nobody here who does it. So she gets into dyeing is incredibly toxic and creates a lot of challenges in China and India. And so she gets into natural dyes. You know, how do you make natural dyes commercially viable? And she gets into some research being done on native indigo in the Carolinas. Again, she explores mills and producing what's called roving, which is you process the fiber just enough for hobbyists to go ahead and spin their own yarn and dye their own yarn if they want, or producing yarn. So again, she follows a couple in California who are trying to get a commercial mill up and going, and that journey. And she also talks about, there was such a cool thing of grazing partnerships. So again, you know, land in California is very, very expensive. Raising sheep is not really super duper lucrative. And so one of the things that people do is graze their sheep. They have partnerships with various wineries in California. So, you know, you bring the sheep into the vineyard and they graze on all of the plants in between the vines. It's organic, right? Their manure fertilizes the vines. And again, they're grazing and they're stomping, helps with weed control and pest control. So kind of a win-win. So that was kind of a cool thing to read about. So this is not like the best written memoir, you know, I've ever read. And this is definitely niche. So, you know, Lindy, you know, this book's for you. You know, like I think this book definitely appeals to the fiber artist. Not so sure it's gonna be super like gripping for everybody else, but definitely an interesting peek into the sheep and wool world. So then I went ahead and listened to Waiting to be Arrested at Night, a Uyghur poet's memoir of China's genocide by Tahir, Hamut, Izgil. And this is translated by Joshua L. Freeman. This is a memoir of Tahir's journey, really from being sort of a revered poet and intellectual in the autonomous Uyghur region in northwest China, to being an immigrant in the United States relatively late in life. I think he's in his late 40s, maybe even early 50s when he emigrates to the US. And it's a lot about how that decision was in that process of actually, once you've made the decision, okay, how do you prepare to leave in this repressive culture that is, it's sort of watching your every move. And so, and you know, there's risks to your family and friends. So, you know, people are being arbitrarily questioned, arrested, sent to, you know, study camps. And so you don't want to tell your friend you're leaving, because that then puts your friend at risk. And if your friend is arrested, it could be then that they end up sharing your plans to leave. So, so it was about, you know, again, once you've made that decision, how do you prep to leave? Leaving when you can't say goodbye to anybody. And then, you know, again, yeah, how that can play out for family and friends. So, and then, you know, again, it's really his personal sort of decision-making process. So, of course, events in the Uyghur region are discussed, but it's really how those events then weigh into the, you know, the calculus of their decision-making. And he has a wife and 2 daughters. So, you know, how do you get everybody on board, right, with the decision to leave? And it's still, you love your culture, you love your homeland. How do you walk away? You know, this was an interesting memoir for me. And then I remember very distinctly asking my great aunt why, you know, her family, my family, right, emigrated. So my mother's family was Russian Jews, and so they left just at the turn of the century. And I just remember her answering me, oh, for a better life. And that just never seemed like a satisfying answer. And so this was an interesting memoir in that, yes, it's a better life, but everything you know is in your homeland. And how bad do things need to get? And, you know, even when he sees the writing on the wall, like the likelihood that he is going to be arrested and sent to a study camp is increasingly likely, right? So what's that tipping point where you decide your life is in danger enough to drive you to leave? It's just, you know, and this also made me think a lot about sort of Jews during the Holocaust, where again, it's like, dude, the writing is on the wall. Why didn't you leave? And this memoir really helped me appreciate that decision is not easy, and it's really hard. There's a lot that goes into it. It's not as simple as I assumed. So in that sense, this really gave me an appreciation for how challenging the decisions to leave your homeland and emigrate and completely start over, how hard that is. So definitely worthwhile from that perspective. So those are the 2 books that I read this week. And I'm in the middle of 2 books. Beyond the Door of No Return by David Diop. I read All Blood is Black last year, I don't know, and I thought that book was amazing. This book, completely different. So, it's still well written, but it's historical fiction. Like, it's hard to believe it's the same author. So I'm not quite sure how I'm feeling about this. I'm also reading Betty. And this is for the Past and Future Readathon. This was recommended to me by my friend Lori, and we're reading this together. Almost getting there. I read Tiffany McDaniel's book, The Summer That Melted Everything, and really loved that book. And I'm really enjoying this book as well, and I'm actually really curious to hear what Lori thinks. It's taken a dark turn. I should probably also mention that Raw was also read for the Past and Future Readathon. This was one of my most recent books on my TBR, and I'm also potentially using it for my color wheel prompt, which was cyan. I know this color is not exactly cyan, but I'm making it work. So that's what I got going on this week. I'm really hoping that next week sort of mellows out and I can get a little bit more reading worked into my life. So that's it. I hope everyone had a great holiday season, great New Year's, and 2024 is starting off good. All right, see ya.